So we have major updates coming out of Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz just surrendered. He called the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, because Trump decided to send the border czar to Minneapolis to clean up the city. Take a look.
In the wake of another deadly shooting on the weekend, Donald Trump is now sending his border czar, Tom Homan, to the state to oversee the Department of Homeland Security activities. Within the past few hours, he posted on Truth Social, Governor Tim Walz called me, and this is Trump we're talking about here, not Homan. Governor Tim Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a good call, and we actually seemed to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I'd have Tom Homan call him and that what we're looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The Governor very respectfully understood that, and I'll be speaking to him in the near future. He was happy that Tom Homan was going to Minnesota. Crime is way down, but both Governor Walz and I want to make it better.
So Governor Tim Walz just surrendered despite the fact that over the past couple of weeks, they've been essentially trying to prevent ICE, trying to get ICE out of Minnesota. Because remember, the reason why ICE and other federal law enforcement there in Minnesota is because there were a whole bunch of allegations regarding fraud. Then federal agents went in to essentially investigate that fraud. Federal officials went in to investigate that fraud. They started finding a whole bunch of fraud regarding illegal Somali immigrants. And then ICE went in to essentially get rid of these illegals and a whole bunch of other criminals. And then Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, Elon Omar, and other Democratic officials try to prevent ICE from doing their job. They essentially told people to go out there to march, to impede ICE. They told local authorities not to work with ICE. And what you had as a result of that, you had a whole bunch of riots, a whole bunch of chaos. You had two people that died, unfortunately, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, which is unfortunate that they lost their lives. But whenever you have a situation where, illegals are running wild, there's no one arresting them because ICE cannot do their job without, some vigilante or some agitators essentially preventing them from doing their job. Then what you had is the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, he decided to send Tom Homan to Minneapolis. And these are the demands from the Trump administration. Here's Caroline Levitt.
It is President Trump's hope and wish and demand for the resistance and chaos to end today. That's why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning, and he has outlined a clear and simple path to restoring law and order in Minnesota. Number one, Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and all Democrat leaders should turn over all criminal illegal aliens currently incarcerated in their prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with any illegal aliens with active warrants or known criminal histories for immediate deportation. Number two, state and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens who are arrested by local police. And then thirdly, local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crime.
So what the Trump administration is asking for is typical. They're not asking for a lot. They're not asking them to do much. It is typical what you'll find in any other state. If ICE is going to, a red state and they're conducting their operations, it's going to be the same thing that they're asking for here. And it is simple because what they're asking for is that if you have criminals in your jail, if someone committed a crime, if an illegal alien committed a crime, hand them over. And what you see Tim Walz and his government is doing, they're not handing those if they're arrested for rape, if they're arrested for murder, as a criminal illegal alien, they're not turning those individuals over to ICE. That would make this process so much easier, right? It is simple what they're asking for. They're saying, hey, if you have a warrant for an illegal alien, turn that over to me. That is what the Trump administration is asking for. So we can look at that warrant, see where they are, and that's going to spare you time and resources. And you must work with federal agents, because if federal agents, they're trying to do their job and you're essentially telling local authorities to not work with them, that is a slippery slope. And I think that can constitute insurrection. If you're telling people to go out there to impede ICE, to stop them from doing what they're doing when they're enforcing the law, and you're telling local authorities not to work with them In my opinion, that's insurrection, and that needs to be investigated, and there needs to be accountability for that. Here's Judge Grady on that exact same matter in regards to working with federal law enforcement.
Hello, I'm Sheriff Grady Judd. I've spent my entire adult life in law enforcement, and I have never heard of one law enforcement agency not helping another when they call for help until this weekend, when a chief of patrol, where the Chicago Police Department instructed the police officers not to run in and help their colleagues who were calling for help, who were under attack by a bunch of people clearly violating the law. That's scary.
And that is the difference between states like Florida, Texas, versus California and Minnesota. States like Texas and Florida, they respect the rule of law. States like California and Minnesota, they're working to actively defend criminals. This is why you go to these states and you see, people marching, defund the police, defund ICE, get rid of DHS, because they do not respect the rule of law. For instance, there was a guy in Florida, right, who resisted ICE agents and got away in a community, right? What they did, they sent a helicopter, a drone, K9, and 50 law enforcement officers to surround an area, and they found that guy who violently resisted ICE, and then they locked him up, and ICE was able to deport him. That is the difference between states like Florida and California and Minnesota. Because states like Florida and Texas, they're going to do whatever is necessary to keep their people safe, to keep their communities safe. States like California and Minnesota, they're going to put criminals over the regular citizens. Citizens who's trying to go about their day. Citizens that are being victimized by these illegal aliens. So there must be a stop to this. Tom Homan needs to go into Minneapolis, and he needs to essentially get this city under control. And in other news, what we're seeing the Trump administration sending home Greg Bovino, and ICE going to have complete control. Border Patrol, they're leaving Minneapolis, and ICE is going to have complete control to essentially get rid of these criminals. Take a look.
Some major developments right now out of Minneapolis. This comes just days after a tragic weekend there in the Twin Cities. Democratic leaders calling for Border Patrol and ICE agents to be removed from their communities. And it appears there's a big shift that is actually happening. The Washington Examiner, Anna Gianartelli, a reporter that we've had on here on Live Now from Fox, reporting just that Border Patrol agents, ICE agents will be departing. She says she has confirmed that all Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis are being sent home. DHS, CBP have not responded to an email. This comes after federal sources told me that over the weekend, agents were told their deployment will be extended into February. Major changes in 24 hours. And of course, this also comes after a phone conversation. President Trump did speak with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz this morning. They said they did have a good conversation, a good phone call, and also President Trump, the White House, announcing that there would be changes to the leadership in the Twin Cities. As border czar Tom Homan now will lead that, and we'll see what that exactly looks like with this new report that Border Patrol agents being sent home as a major developments after, like I said, a very tragic weekend, as border czar Tom Homan will oversee operations.
Let us start off by saying Greg Bovino was doing a pretty good job, but it's now time to get the big guns into Minneapolis, right? Tom Homan, we all know that Tom Homan doesn't play games. He's going to go in there. He's going to arrest the worst of the worst. He's going to get them on a plane and get them to where they came from. People that are terrorizing the city, right? People that are terrorizing the American citizens. Now it's time for Tim Walz and Jacob Fry to stop playing games because they're getting people killed. Let's get this thing figured out and start protecting the American people. Now we have a local rapper in Minneapolis who tried to confront federal agents, and take a look at what happened, how that played out. And see, this is why whenever you see there was a riot going on, just leave the premises, just go home. Go home to your family, okay? Because if you try to confront federal agents, if you try to be unlawful, try to resist, then guess what? This is what's going to happen, right? And these streets need to be cleaned up. Law and order needs to be brought back to these streets in Minneapolis and Minnesota, which is why it's so important that Tom Homan is going in to help clean up these streets. And I hope Tim Walz, Jacob Fry, they can get local authorities, local law enforcement out there in the streets to essentially keep the peace, because that is what they're being paid for. That is what taxpayers are paying them for. Now, that brings us to the end of the show. Just tell me what you think about Tom Homan going to Minneapolis. Do you think this will change anything? Please also considering liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.